Hi, John McElroy here, talking all things automotive. Did you know that Volkswagen used to be the #1 import brand in the American market? It outsold Toyota, Honda, Nissan, you name it. VW outsold them all. Today, that is a distant memory. VW doesn't even sell as many cars in the US now as it did back in 1970. But when VW announced it's going to revive the Scout brand from International Harvester, my eyes lit up. What an opportunity! This is the perfect way for VW to claw its way back to a much bigger position in the American market. But first, some backstory. The Scout, for those of you who don't know, was a Jeep-like pickup and SUV that was made by International Harvester. It was in the market from 1961 to 1980, and the only thing like it at the time was the Jeep CJ. But even back then, you didn't see a lot of Scouts because International Harvester was mainly an agricultural equipment manufacturer. It made big trucks and tractors and reapers and combines and didn't exactly have car dealerships all over the place, so sales were never that great. But the Scout still managed to generate the same kind of brand enthusiasm that Jeep does today. Very early in my career, I actually got to borrow one from Harvester for a week-long test drive. There were not a lot of vehicles back then that could do serious off-road driving, and it was a blast to drive. International Harvester, which made the Scout, traced its roots back to 1834 when Cyrus McCormick invented the horse-drawn reaper. Next to John Deere, Harvester was probably the best-known name in agricultural equipment, and the company was practically a part of American folklore. But in the late 1970s, it got a CEO named Archie McCardle who drove the company into the ground. I remember that one of the ways he boosted the company's bottom line was by eliminating all spending on research and development. If you think that's stupid, it gets worse. After the board of directors gave him a $1.8 million bonus for boosting profits, he demanded that the company's union workers take pay cuts. Needless to say, that didn't go over very well with the union. It went on a strike that lasted 172 days and financially crippled the company. International Harvester never recovered. So it started selling off assets until the only thing that was left was its truck operations. And that's when the company changed its name to Navistar. Fast forward to today, Volkswagen, which is a major truck manufacturer all around the world except in North America, wanted to break into the American market. But instead of starting from scratch, it bought Navistar. And along with that, it got the rights to using the Scout brand. And then someone at Volkswagen got the brilliant idea to come out with an electric pickup truck using the Scout name. And VW is reportedly thinking beyond just naming a truck called the Scout. It's looking at making electric trucks and SUVs built around that brand. It may even turn out to be a standalone company within the group, like Audi or Porsche, and it will likely get its own assembly plant in the US. I think this could become the equivalent of the Jeep brand for VW, and it could pay off humongously. Interestingly, VW's dealers in the US are hopping mad about this because VW is reportedly going to use a direct sales model to sell these vehicles and pretty much bypass them. Creating Scout as a standalone unit is sort of like what Ford's doing and splitting off its EV operations under a new business unit called Ford Model E. As I said at the beginning, VW used to be the #1 import brand in America, easily outselling all the others and by a wide margin. In 1970, VW sold 574,000 cars, mainly with the Beetle, the Karmann Ghia, and that hippie bus. VW built its reputation on cars that were simple, economical, and easy to fix. When it started to stray away from that formula in the mid-1970s, it all started to fall apart. By 1993, sales sunk to only 62,000 cars, and VW seriously thought about dropping out of the US market. The reason that VW slid down so fast in the American market is that the execs back at VW's headquarters in Wolfsburg, Germany, never took the US market seriously. Over beers and off the record, executives at Volkswagen of America would complain bitterly how Wolfsburg ignored their ideas and input. And you can see that by the names that they gave their cars. Names that maybe made sense in Germany, but in America, they sounded downright stupid. Like Passat. Passat! Sounds like you're standing in front of a urinal. Touareg? You tore an egg? It's even hard to spell. Touareg. It's named after a nomadic tribe in North Africa that also turned out to have a history of buying and selling slaves. Whoops! Then there's Tiguan. Tiguan. Eos. Arteon. When you say them out loud in isolation, they just sound like a dumb name for a car. But Scout, now there's a name that actually means something and has a terrific heritage behind it. And it gives Volkswagen the opportunity to mine that heritage to create a brand identity no one else could match. But it should go beyond just using the name Scout and tap into the heritage that International Harvester represents. That heritage includes agricultural equipment, robust machinery that's used to feed the people of the world, machinery that ties you to the heart of the country, machinery that farmers buy not because they want it, but because they need it, machinery that's a tool that helps you get the job done. Just as Jeep keeps tying its heritage to that World War II Willys MB, Volkswagen could tap into the heritage of International Harvester. And that kind of ties in with Volkswagen's original image. Simple, robust, easy to fix. So yes, VW can use the Scout name, but the opportunity here is to embrace the heritage of International Harvester. I'd even call one of those models the Tractor because I think the Volkswagen Tractor kind of has a nice ring to it. And of course, from a styling standpoint, all the models would have to evoke the image of the original Scout, just as Jeep keeps on using that 7-slot grille on everything that it makes. You know, Volkswagen's at something of a crossroads right now. The European market is the weakest it's been since the Great Recession and could take years to recover. And while sales of its electric cars in China are improving, they're not growing fast enough to offset the decline on the ICE side of the business. From a strategic standpoint, VW probably put too many eggs in the Chinese basket. 40% of its sales and almost 50% of its profits come from China. But with today's geopolitical uncertainties, the company needs to spread its risk. And the biggest opportunity it has is to figure out a way to grow back big in the American market. A new model line of electric trucks and SUVs with a genuine American heritage and with names that Americans can relate to could be just what the doctor ordered.